Britain is a multicultural society. Some groups are increasing much faster than others. An analysis of census data by the Muslim Council of Britain has found 1 in 12 pupils at English and Welsh schools are now Muslim. That's twice more than a decade before. The government's idea to unite the many different cultures is to insist all schools should promote fundamental British values. Well, a Christian school in Durham has been threatened with closure under this test because it failed to teach its pupils properly about Islam and sex. Well, now critics are saying that teaching children in separate faith schools exacerbates these divides, those tensions, that silo mentality. Does faith have any place in schools? Rabbi, does faith have any place in schools?
Not really, on the grounds that faith is enormously important as a personal belief system. It should be in schools as an academic subject, both for general knowledge and also for community cohesion, so you can understand the chap sitting next to you. But actually, it shouldn't be used as an admission criterion and to indoctrinate the children and to divide children into different schools, Hindus over there, Jews, Muslims, C of E, Catholics. It's not good for the children to ghettoise them. It's not good, actually, for society at large to almost create an educational apartheid system. And I say this really from a religious perspective, because I think many of us would share love your neighbour as yourself, but you can only love your neighbour as yourself if you actually know him and knows what makes him or her tick.
Dilly Hussain, I mean, I don't want to get into the fact that was there a coordinated plot or not. There were problems in schools. We've around here, Islamic schools in this area. And these weren't even faith schools.
They were state schools.
Yeah, so here's the quick question, a couple of things I want to ask you. Why should taxpayers' money fund your supernatural beliefs?
Are we talking about faith schools or state schools?
Faith schools.
Well,
or state schools where they have these lessons.
Well, whether faith schools or state schools...
Why should taxpayers' money fund anyone's supernatural beliefs?
Britain prides itself in allowing people who follow a religion to practice their faith freely. And schools are a mere manifestation or an extension of society. So if we apply this in society, I don't understand what the problem is in implementing this in schools.
Schools are there to teach facts.
Okay, but there has to be a differentiation between state schools and faith schools. State schools, obviously, religious education would suffice. My concern is that schools should accommodate for people who adhere to a particular faith. But that's different to faith schools where the actual curriculum is based around that specific religion.
Okay, but these state schools, they were accommodating people of a particular conservative interpretation of Islam. They were, you know, they were saying music is haram, music is evil, disgusting views about homosexuality, denying science. I mean, teaching kids that music is haram, is that, why should we be paying for that? Is that right?
If we're talking about the alleged Trojan horse scandal, right?
Teaching children that music is evil, is that right?
In a state school, not necessarily, no.
In a faith school?
Yeah, in a state school, that shouldn't be.
Is it right in a faith school ever?
Well, you have to appreciate that faith school is a faith school, so they will teach whatever that specific religion deems to be right or wrong.
I think that shows that we've actually lost the plot, because the real question is what sort of society do we want? And precisely because we're a multi-faith society, we don't want to turn it into a multi-fractured society. And actually faith, by all means, let it come from the home, from the church, the mosque, the Gurdwara, but it shouldn't be used to indoctrinate the children or divide them.
We have hundreds of schools. We have hundreds of faith schools up and down the country. They produce some of the brightest children in terms of GCSE passes, and state schools actually have some inherent social problems. Drug abuse,
You wouldn't dream of saying, let's have schools for white people only. And by the way, if it has good results...
You're conflating religion with race. You're conflating religion with race.
Let's take credit to the churches, because after all, it was the churches who in the 1500s started schools, and there are, of course, many individual faith schools which are excellent. I'm very happy to admit that. But the question is a systemic one of what sort of society do we want? A divided one or a homogeneous?
Okay, Dilly, let me ask you something else, then we'll move it along and we'll move it out, and people who want to speak on this. Is in a faith school, for example, in an Islamic faith school, this applies to other faith schools too, it's a yes or no job. Is it okay for children to be taught that another religion is wrong? Yes or no?
Conceptually, there's nothing wrong with that, because it's a concept. So it's a religious concept. Because you're assuming that that will manifest into society, and the approach will be like, oh, this person is a disbeliever. Of course not. You're assuming that.
Can I say...
It's right to be able to say...
That's a religious concept.
It's a religious... Emily, you said wow when he said that.
I mean, yeah, I mean... I'm pretty shocked at that. I think
It's a religious concept. It doesn't mean that will manifest in some particular...
What kind of society do you want, Dilly? I mean, like, if that's
what
the
kind of
thing
society
you're
does
willing to
Britain claim?
support...
What kind of society does Britain claim to be?
A pluralist and modern society. That's what we seek.
Oh, well, you
and what you're suggesting is the antithesis of that. Sorry, don't talk over me.
Wait a minute, I want to hear, Marie, I'll bring you in a second, from the Catholic perspective. I want to hear a little bit more from Emily, because I did just clock her abhorrence, I think, about what you heard from Dilly.
Yeah,
I want to explore that. Why? That's what
to...
religion says, doesn't it? Yeah. You wouldn't be religious if you didn't think your religion was better than other religions. What's your problem with that?
I mean, teaching it in schools, it's fine to believe that. I mean, people believe they're better than people all the time. Teaching it in schools, that's absolutely insane. We have a responsibility to British children, whatever faith they are, to protect them from religious extremism, abhorrent, homophobic views that make them hate women, other religions, gay people, pick a minority, basically. Yeah. I mean, brainwashing kids with this ideology at such a young age is absolutely insane.
Roshan, OK, here we are. You're on.
Nikki,
you've got stuff to say.
I have been doing some work on the Trojan Horse report.
Yeah.
I'm one of the few people who have actually read the 127-odd pages.
Don't read them out.
No, I'm not going to. But let me just say, when the media talks about a few schools in Birmingham, you always think maybe about 4 or 5, you know, maybe 6, 7. When I tell you that it's about 21 schools, 14 have been investigated seriously, 6 have been placed in special measures, and another 6 have been severely criticised. We have got an epidemic. We've got a problem. And the problem is one of segregation, not only in our society, but segregation in our schools. We've got faith schools, we've got free schools, we've got academies that have got religious characters. I don't want that kind of an education for my children, for my grandchildren. I think faith is something that should be taught in families. I don't think faith has...
Is there a problem with critical thinking?
Yes, there is.
OK, if you're taught something, you've talked about the virgin birth, are you encouraged to say...
Are
you worried that people are encouraged not to say...
There is serious problem about critical thinking. In a secular school... Let me give you some. If you go into a secular school and you're talking to children about what is right and wrong, they will try and resort to various other texts apart from the sacred text. If you go into a faith school, say you go into an Islamic school, and you ask students what is right and what is wrong, they will constantly, perpetually refer to the Quran as their guide. I think that is actually a narrow way of thinking about morality. That is a narrow way of thinking about ethics. I think we should encourage children to think about a wide range of resources, not just the sacred.
Marie.
Can I say... I work in a faith school, and I've worked
in
Catholic school, and I've worked in faith schools for 20 years. And actually, they are not divisive, and a lot of people who have these opinions about faith schools haven't ever stood in a classroom. And I would like to say to you, come into the classroom. Can you see what we teach? We teach, can I say, we teach world religions, we teach critical thinking, we get the kids to evaluate. They talk about Richard Dawkins, they talk about creationism, they critically evaluate in year 8.
There is no way. Marie, forgive me.
I must make this point.
Dawkins isn't the polar opposite of creationism. Most people accept the theory of evolution.
But they have evaluated the skills to evaluate it,
So
whereas
somebody
people are
says to
putting
you,
labels on the faith schools.
if a child says, then, I think the virgin birth is inconceivable. That's probably not the right word.
That's fine.
But if somebody were to say that, would you say? What would you say to them?
I would say, right, why do you say that?
Because it doesn't happen.
We are not there banging our beliefs into children. Have you tried to stand in front of 14-year-olds and bang your beliefs into them? we don't do that. We say, this is the Catholic belief. This is one of many beliefs. We live in a pluralist society.
What would this country be like without faith in
It
schools?
would be poorer because it promotes the common good in society, the good results that we all know about, but also
why should the
the
taxpayer
Ofsted,
fund
can I say
Let her finish.
Ofsted,
Let her finish.
an
Then it's you.
An
Carry on.
Ofsted study and the Department of Education, they found out that it increased, faith schools increased community cohesion by 41% as opposed to in secular schools 20%. And one more thing, secular schools isn't a neutral thing. Secularism is a belief system itself. You may say it is a belief system.
But secularism is saying you do not favour any belief system above another belief system. How's that a belief system?
That is a belief system itself.
Secularism is...
Nikki, secularism prides itself for promoting certain values. Values of respect, mutual respect, diversity,
of all belief
difference, equality of race, gender and ideology. That is not the set of values that I have seen in Islamic schools. They are not the set of values I have seen in faith schools. I think faith schools use the faith as the overriding umbrella in which they teach RE, in which they teach sciences, and sometimes what they're teaching in sciences conflicts with the ideology, and that is causing a problem. We need to promote secularism.
We haven't heard from Tim.
To promote diversity.
Let me take... Wait, please. I want to bring in Tim, who's been sitting there listening intently. And let me just take it to your own situation. You're Catholic.
Yes.
If and when you ever have children, why would you want your children to go to a Catholic school?
Well, OK, first of all, because let's get some facts about what faith schools are actually like. About 25% of primary and middle schools are run by the Church of England, so there are a lot of them. The number of which are Islamic is actually really quite tiny, and that's blown out of proportion. The schools which were affected by the Trojan horse scandal were state schools, they were not faith schools.
Right, yeah.
I would send my kids to a faith school because they typically do outperform schools which are not faith schools. I would send them there because they're very inclusive. In C of E schools, about 15% of pupils get support for food, which is about the national average. And I would send them also because they are surprisingly inclusive. Most faith schools which are established now have a commitment to take 50% of pupils who are not of the same religion. May I just make my point? But most of all, I'd want my kid to go to a Catholic school because I'm a taxpayer. I'm a Catholic, it informs my ethics, my worldview, and if I'm paying, obviously, for my kids' education, I want that to inform theirs too. But also, teaching a child about religion is a little like teaching them a musical instrument. It'll inform their childhood, it'll enrich their childhood. Later on in life, they may well give up that musical instrument, but they'll always be able to read music. If you teach kids about religion, they'll understand their world, their culture, and they can reject it, which, by the way, sadly, the vast majority of Catholics do, but they will understand it and it will enrich their life.
But wouldn't your children be better off learning about all faiths?
Over here.
Which they have to do by the national curriculum.
Harris.
Yes, they do.
Let's get the facts on this issue, first of all. We've been drawn into a faith debate and then a Muslim debate. Muslims are only 5% of the population, first of all. Yeah. And when you speak to Muslim parents and Muslim students, as I do for part of my job, what they want is similar to what any other person wants. They want good education, they want learning, they want their kids to do well, to get on and get maximised life. You teach in a faith school, so on a day-to-day basis. So I take the cue from you. And my understanding is that faith schools do not lead to segregation. What leads to segregation is very, very complex. And it's to do with poverty, it's to do with a whole range of issues. So let's not make faith schools the Trojan horse for this debate.
Yeah, but
it's really important to get the facts on the table, because when you don't get the facts on the table, you talk a load of rubbish. And I think that's really important to do that.
Here's the fact.
David, okay, gentlemen, I see your hands up, and lots of hands up. I'm going to go right in the audience in just a second.
Yeah,
so, David, make it quick.
Yes, we've heard lots about facts, but here's the biggest fact of all. Most taxpayers are not Catholic, are not Islamist, And I don't see why we... I do not see...
What do you mean by Islamic?
Muslims.
Your true colours came out there. You were justifying murder earlier. Now you call it Muslims Islamic.
You call them Islamists.
Is that your default position?
I'll tell you what. That's ridiculous. I'll tell you what. I'm going to have to go to the...
Can I not actually finish my sentence?
Well, no, I wanted to say... Finish it.
Let me have my point. Most taxpayers are not Catholics or indeed any other particular faith. Why should we fund all your faith schools? We shouldn't. It's as simple as that.
OK, thank you. Right, hands up. First of all, let me go to that lady there in the second row.
Hi,
here comes the microphone.
We're talking about facts in terms of faith schools, and yet we're eliding lots of different terminology with regards to faith schools. So we're talking about faith schools and state schools as though they're separate things. We have faith schools in the state system.
But there have been problems in state schools.
There have been problems in non-denominational state schools, not secular schools. We don't have secular schools in this country because what we have is not confessional religious education in those schools, but we have the daily act of worship, which should be broadly Christian in character. And while we've got that, we don't have secular schools in this country. So there's a lot of problems with how we talk about faith schools because most people don't know how faith schools operate. When we talk about C of E schools, the C of E claims they don't have any faith schools because their schools are set up for the community. Some people, for them, faith schools are schools which only admit people who are of that faith, but only if they're fully subscribed, because actually all faith schools have to admit pupils of other faith if they're not fully subscribed.
In theory.
So,
in theory.
Yeah, in theory. But
I want to get other people in.
Yeah, but our main problem that we have here is it's not about there being faith in schools. As long as schools are preparing children for life in this society, there must be faith in schools. The problem is confessional religious education. It's about trying to turn out pupils who have specific beliefs. And that's what's problematic, because those children are people in their own right, and they should be autonomous.
Thank you very much indeed. Right in the middle. You're there with that blue shirt, yeah.
I would say there seems to be a bit of a double standard, really, because promoting British values is a belief system itself, and as a Catholic, I think we pay taxes just as much as anybody else, and if we didn't have faith schools, we'd be paying for British values, which often go against Catholic beliefs.
What British values go against?
Well, for example, teaching, promoting abortion, for example, to young girls and boys from a young age would not be
promoting.
Something. Well, promoting as in... teaching. Well, teaching as in giving out numbers for where you can go and stuff to get abortions wouldn't be something Catholic parents would be willing to pay their taxes for. And a final comment would be that
well, that's within the law.
The Catholic
so,
Church...
you change the law if you don't...
The Catholic Church pays an enormous amount of money in addition to what those Catholic taxpayers actually pay. So we're actually paying more as Catholics for Catholic faith schools.
What do you do?
I'm a seminarian training to be a priest.
Good luck. Quick, Rabbi Romain, last word.
Yes, the only reason faith schools exist in this country is because they're given exemption from the Equality Act, so they're allowed to discriminate. And I'm not sure if it's very clever if religion can only achieve its aims by discrimination. And let's end by looking at Northern Ireland. I'm not going to say for a moment that the problems are due to faith schools, but there's no doubt that the stereotypes and the prejudices were perpetuated by children being separated. And what's happening today... Despite the school population going down, actually more children are going to integrated schools because parents realise on both sides of the divide it's actually clever to get them to mix. And that surely has a message for us.
Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you for that contribution.